Hey everybody, it's Thursday.
And welcome to this week's edition of the Night Bite.
I'm Josh,
And I'm Emily.
the salamander wrangler.
No, that's not even true. That's not even true. Right before this, we were really hiking around outside. We are starting to get some nice weather, really starting to roll through.
Yeah.
But I think that's a little bit deceiving because if you look at the forecast, at least for our area, we're supposed to get a whole bunch of rain that's about to push through. And I think, to be honest, that's the story of some of these last few weekends.
Yeah, it's been kind of crazy for us, like windy, like abnormally windy for around here. Rain, but we've really, we need to keep on top of the rain a little bit because we're teetering on the edge of being dry. So, yeah, we like to have the rain. It just has been lining up like right weekend after weekend, and not that we're opposed to fishing in the rain, but rain and wind is really difficult sometimes, especially when fish are already, like they'll scoot into the warm water a little bit, and then if the wind starts blowing and getting that water mixed up, they'll push back out, and it's hard to stay on top of them. So yeah, we'll see what this weekend brings. But last weekend we got out and yeah, water was like 48, 50 degrees. And we did mark some fish, but they were down in 40 feet of water. And we're just not a huge fan of like pulling fish out from that deep, especially this time of year. So we just let them go. We tooled around, tried to play around in the shallows. There's nothing up there yet. So we're waiting patiently, getting out on the boat, going through the reps. Granted, we've only tried one lake a couple times, so we still have a bunch of other lakes to go check. So,
but it is nice because all of these different lakes and especially these different park districts and communities are starting to really make sure that these docks are out. So I know that especially those of you that have been fishing rivers, a lot of times those get put out earlier and people go out for walleye, and that's awesome. But, this spring and open water season is really starting to get kicked off for some people. And so even us, we showed up at one of our favorite little lakes this past weekend, and gosh, they had fixed, regraded the whole launch. So that's actually nice. Sometimes you have to like back out really far places, or, be careful of maybe there's a dip at the bottom, but when they fix that, that's really nice to show up and see that. So. Aside from that, we are really looking forward to fish pushing into, well, not the shallows, because I guess sometimes we like to let them spawn and then go find them again, right? But, watching that transition of the fish moving from those deeper waters, like you said, we found them in 40 feet. That was kind of unexpected. But I don't know. I think some of this wind has them really, I don't know, maybe hunkered down or pushed to places, or I don't know. Let us know what the water temperature is by you, and what those fish are doing, because I don't know. They're all about in that transition period. So fish are going to be all doing kind of different stuff at this point. So that's always interesting to see.
Hey, Mark. Yeah, I mean, pretty soon here we should start seeing fish push up to some of that deeper weed lines or deeper structure, right outside of the spawning areas. The females and males will start splitting up as they start getting into that pre-spawn. And that's one time that we really like fishing is that pre-spawn.
You know what's funny? I was just about to transition to our guest, so I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, that's
wait
fine.
For a whole nother minute, but you're making an interesting point that I didn't actually think I was going to bring up. One of the things that we did notice about the lakes as we were kind of driving around, trolling around, is wow. But we noticed some of the different weeds are really starting to get growing, and it seems to be beyond even what I would expect for the water temperatures. So one of the things that I also wondered, maybe in the last few weekends there was a warm water spike and then it dipped back down, or the cool evenings, or I'm not exactly sure what happened. But when you're referencing these deep weed beds, when you go fishing, those weed beds might be a little bit more set up than they were in previous years, and that's something that I didn't expect to see.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know, just a random thought. It was just interesting. So I don't know, I figured I'd throw that in because that always changes things up a little bit. And if you have a lake that gets weedy really fast and really early, watch out. But we are really looking forward to this evening's guest. So let's bring him in right away and get to chatting. So Tom, thanks for being here.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. And I think actually,
Okay.
I really appreciate your background. Those icy mountains, it reminds me of ice fishing. And I think we actually met in an ice fishing expo.
Yep.
So that was kind of funny. But for people who are just meeting you here tonight, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Where do I start? I am one of the owners of TKI CNC. My wife and I own the company together. I have fished since I was little. My grandmother was actually the one that started taking me fishing. And come to find out from my mom years later that my grandmother actually hated fishing because my grandfather did it so much that she was the one that used to have to sit in the car and wait while grandpa walked down a stream or whatever. But kind of ironic that my grandmother got me started, probably when I was, from the time I can remember, probably 6, 7, 8 years old. But yeah, my hobbies have kind of turned into our business between the snowmobile line of products and now the fishing line, which is great. But yeah, I love the tournament scene, the fishing, the fishing family. I guess I call it. There's a lot of really great people out there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we are going to be talking a bit of fishing tonight. So before we get there, I am actually interested in hearing a little bit about the snowmobile end of things, just so people are aware of that as well. So tell us about that.
We actually started building snowmobile parts, I think it was 13 or 14 years ago. Actually, it'd be 14 years. Next year will be our 15-year anniversary. But we build aftermarket snowmobile parts and ship them around the world. It's pretty crazy the far reaches. We sell a lot of stuff to like Japan, South America. Probably the craziest one, Russia, Norway, Sweden, but the craziest one is actually Lebanon. Mm-hmm. Eli Salame is a dealer of ours there, and he literally has to drive his trailer through the desert to get up to like 12,000 or 14,000 feet to ride snowmobiles. They have no trees. So yeah, he's a dealer of ours there, but awesome guy. He usually comes over and visits us once a year at a snowmobile show, and he hasn't done it the last couple of years. But yeah, Ellie is a awesome guy, but yeah, some cool people we've met on that side. So.
And you were snowmobiling for so many years, and you decided that maybe you needed something to snowmobile too, and so you started fishing. Is that how that worked?
No, I fished long before I snowmobiled. I actually didn't start snowmobiling until we moved west to Montana. And I actually had a retired police officer and a friend of his, Kevin Unruh and Bob Robinson, came to me and asked me. I was actually doing diesel performance parts, like drag racing parts and stuff like that. And they asked me to build some snowmobile parts for them. And I'm like, yeah, that's easy. I can do that. Well, I built one part and they started taking me to the mountain with them. And I think they just needed some good laughs to make fun of somebody. And that's why I kept getting invited. But yeah, that's how the business started. And we started with one product. And I think right now we're approaching probably 200 different products in our product line. So on just the snowmobile side, and now the fishing side, it's been kind of fun. I keep getting the threat from my wife that if I mess up her summer, she's going to be really mad. So, but.
Oh my gosh. So a whole bunch of snowmobile products. That's awesome. And then tell us a little bit about what you have coming out on the fishing side of things.
The live pole stuff and the billet rod holders is one of our main products. But we do have some new storage system products coming along. And then we also have a double and a triple graph mount for the bow. If you notice, a lot of the NWT anglers and even a lot of the bass anglers now are running 2 graphs and even 3 graphs on the bow. We have some new products for that coming. Really simple, robust, strong stuff. I tend to overbuild. So.
That's interesting that you said that, because my next question actually was going to be, based on the stories that you kind of were telling us a moment ago, it sounds like you were like the original CNCist, a CNC artist. I don't know, I guess the term, but machinist. There you go.
Yep.
When you're creating, these outdoor products, it seems like artists.
It is. I build and design and program everything in-house. So we build all of our products right here in the building. The only thing we don't do is anodize. But yeah, we build and design and test every product that we make personally. So it's we go out of our way to make sure everything is made USA material only, USA hardware. Like I feel like we kind of go above and beyond to make sure that it's the best of everything.
And so while we were chatting about that, Josh was able to pull up the website. So maybe we can put that on the screen here as well while we're chatting about some of this stuff. Because while we're talking about CNC, I mean, I think that's a great thing to bring up because you had mentioned the fishing rod holders. And so, for example, you call it a billet fishing rod holder. And that comes from the CNC world, right? Because that means that it's like one solid piece. Is that how you explain that?
Yep. So all of the material comes in as like our raw stock form or billet form. So we may buy, a bar of material that's, most of it's 12 feet long, but like the cradles, they originally started 2 by 2.5 material, and then we would machine the entire, as you can see on the screen, the part that would actually hold your fishing rod. We used to build that out of one piece. Now we actually have an extrusion that it comes in that shape and form. But yeah, a lot of machine time into every one of those parts.
That is super interesting. And so this fishing rod holder is also then the pole holder. And I think you referenced that as well.
Yep. That is my design. Sometimes it wasn't planned that way. It just ended up working out perfectly. But yeah, all of our rod holders are our live pole holders. So like if you have any of our fishing rod holders, like you can drop a live pole in it in a matter of, 20 seconds or 30 seconds.
Okay, that really cracks me up. This is why we love talking to people, is that you're like, oh, it wasn't even planned that way. And it just was perfect. And it's like, that is awesome. Because when I look at this product, it seems like it was made for that. Like it is really, the function is there for that.
Yep. I think I got about, all honesty, I think I got about halfway designing it. And I kind of realized, yes, our rod holders are expensive, but the whole LiveScope side of it, when I first started LiveScope, or I bought my first LiveScope, I bought one of the first Hummingbird ones that were on the market. And I was just like, man, I don't want to have to go buy somebody else's pole. Like, this is crazy. I'm already building all this. And it just worked out perfectly that, a couple pieces of tubing. And I'm like, wow, it's almost like I thought of this and didn't even realize that I did. So. But yeah, it worked out good.
And so as far as how the pole itself works, it is nice because you can take it off your boat. Like there's a lot of times when you want to bring your live unit onto the boat, you have to mount it. And so in this case, this is something that you can control if you want it on or not.
Yep. Yeah, we build a bunch of different bases, anything from, like you guys have an Allumatrack or Allumacraft. So we build bases to clamp on the side of your Allumacraft. We've got them for Lund boats for the sport tracks. And then obviously in the pictures, you can see the round rails on our Ranger. Everything clamps on. So there's no drilling holes unless you've got tracks or something like that. But I try and make it very simple. So I hate drilling holes in boats. Boats and holes do not get along. That's where stuff starts sinking. But yeah, it's just try and keep it as simple as possible and easy for the end consumer to use.
Well, and it's kind of scary when you have that pole that you can adjust, you can take it on and off, and you also want it to be secure to the boat, right? So I think one of the things that you were showing before, I'm sorry, it's not on the same picture, but oh yeah, look at right there. There is kind of, I don't even know if you can zoom in. There's like a little collar and it has your logo. Yeah, there you go. It has your logo, but it kind of snaps it in. So the rod holder itself snaps in, and then that little piece keeps it right in place. And so it's nice because even as you, pan around, it's a very stable unit. Like it's not wiggling or anything like that.
Yep. You're exactly right. It's super solid. And we've got musky guys, salmon guys, a lot of the musky guys probably troll faster than anybody, but even at trolling at 3.5, 4.5 miles an hour, like it still works awesome. Like there's no movement. That's why we try and keep it as strong as we can.
Oh no, sorry, John. John's out there fishing. He just lost a fish.
Oh my God.
No, but like to what Emily was saying, like everything on here seems like it was super well thought out. And so the fact that like you're just telling us now that you kind of were like, whoa, it's kind of like I made it for it. And it really seems like that. And like even down to like the height adjustment on the pole itself, like you have the O-rings on there that are they're like pretty tight on the pole itself, but it's super easy to adjust. The collar, this portion right here, that's really easy to adjust. And you say like 20 to 30 seconds to get it out. I mean, it might take me 20 seconds to adjust the pole so it would like flip out, but like taking it out of the rod holder, it might take like 5 seconds. Like it's so easy. And like, and Emily and I like to hammer home the fact that yes, there's some products are a little bit spendy, but when they're value added products, when you can use something for multiple purposes, that money that you spend initially gets cut down because you're not having to buy a lot of products to cover different things. You have one product that covers so many different aspects of your fishing. And so, and this is obviously going to probably outlast the boat. Like, honestly, there's nothing there. You've made it so simple. There's not really much to go wrong with it.
Yep. And that's part of it too, is a lot of our snowmobile products, we offer a lifetime manufacturing warranty. So if something on that is not working right, like you call us and you're going to talk to either Jen or I, we still feel customer service is number one. Sometimes customers can push us to the edge, but yeah, we always want to make sure the customer is happy. And just like you said, it's part of it is the old saying, buy once, cry once. Mm-hmm. It's, when we were younger, I can remember buying the cheapest binoculars I could to go deer hunting, and I couldn't understand why I couldn't see 30 yards in front of me. And as you get older, you just start realizing, you know what, I'm going to buy it once. And so I'm tired of buying every couple of years a little bit better. You just buy a really good set and then you're just over and done with it. Now you've got a set for the next 20 or 30 years. So,
mm-hmm. Well, and to put it in perspective, like a rod holder is a tool that many of us like kind of put in the back of your minds because it's always just kind of sitting there. It doesn't it's not super flashy, but a good rod these days is $200. So If you buy 2 rods, you could get a rod holder. So if you already have your rods, why not protect that investment and have something that will definitely outlast your rods?
Oh, for sure.
And hopefully keep your expensive rods in the boat.
Yes. That and keep the bird's nest out of your trolling reels. That is for sure. That is the main reason why that rod holder got developed. My Jen has a bad habit of bird nesting trolling rods. So I didn't give her a choice. I wasn't going to unspool another one. So.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. While you're maybe up there, Can you click on the fishing rod holder? This might be hard to do, or maybe not, I guess. Can you describe to us that locking mechanism that holds that on there? Because we're talking about our expensive rods and all that, and it's like, oh, just throw it in there. Because this really is secure, so it's not something that you're going to have to worry about.
Yep. Yeah. So the most unique part about our rod holder is the trigger mechanism. So when you depress the trigger, you can kind of see it there. When you depress that trigger, those 2 clams will actually open up. So now you don't have to take a long handled trolling rod and slide it all the way out of a rod holder. You literally grab the rod, press the trigger, and you lift it up 1 inch and it's out of the rod holder. So
yeah, and it really is that easy. Like it's super smooth. You almost like go to grab that trigger, like expecting to have to like clamp down on it, and really like you like touch it and it pops open.
yep.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think it's like 1 or 1.5 pounds of force that it takes to open it, but it completely locks up. You know, when it's not depressed, it locks it. I don't know how many pounds of force it would take. It'd probably be over 100 pounds that you'd have to apply to it to actually pry it open. But you're also going to break some products in the meantime.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's actually really funny because, okay, it is really user friendly when you know how to do it. Like you're saying, it's easy peasy, you know, but it's funny because when we met you at the fishing expo, if you don't know how to do it and you'll sit there for a minute and you'll be like you feel like it's like a joke. You're like, how does this thing open? Because I know that it does.
Yep.
And I'm only sharing that because it's the testament to how well it is working, how well it does stay closed. That like until you know like how easy it is, it's actually like almost not that easy.
Yep.
But that's what's great about it, is because you know that once you do put your expensive fishing rod in there, that it's not going to go anywhere. So that is really great.
Yep, for sure.
Well, okay, so Emily and I have just been using LiveScope for a few
Short time.
Yeah, for a short time now. And so like when we first started, we had the original pole that came with it, and it's like it's a little hard to manage. This really helped with especially our style of fishing, like when we're moving so much, you know, we don't anchor very much, so we're doing a lot of trolling, or we're just like moving spots a lot. And one of my favorite things with the rod holder being the LiveScope mount is that you can just flip it up out of the water so it's like parallel to the surface of the water. Troll, you know, and put your trolling motor on 8, go to the next spot, and then just dunk it back down. And then when you really want to get up on plane and stuff, you just click that open and pull the pole out and set it on right on the deck, and then you go. Like there's not like a whole lot of management involved. It's like almost easier than running the trolling motor itself, you know. So it's like it's awesome.
It definitely takes less effort. And, you know, and one of the other big benefits, and you guys have probably noticed it, is the cords that run up the center of the pole. There is a lot less tangling. You know, like I said, I tried to keep it simple, but yeah, I mean, stowing and deploying and everything, everything, I'm not saying it's perfect. We're always trying to improve a product, but for our style of fishing where we're at, it's, especially the forward facing side of it, boy, it really changes how you fish. And what you just said, Josh, is exactly right. It's the more you use it, the more you realize how much it changes how you fish in general. It's all about moving and searching instead of fishing a point, or, you know, for crappie and perch, you may be fishing a brush pile, but instead of just sitting on that and waiting for fish to show up, you're constantly moving and searching those fish out. And that's the part about having a very user-friendly product, that if you're moving around that much, like it's a must. You've got to have something that works good.
You know, that's a really interesting concept, because I guess this makes sense in my brain, so I hope it makes sense to everybody else too. But, you know, a few years ago, before LiveScope, especially during ice fishing, what we would talk about is that if you put a graph down and you see that there could be fish there and you're not getting those bites, that you've got to keep moving until you find the hungry fish, right? And so it's not just about finding a spot, it's about finding, you know, the right fish. And I think to some extent that's the mentality of the LiveScope, is it's like, you know, maybe you're targeting those active fish. Maybe you're finding a new species of fish. Maybe you always just cast for bluegill on a weed edge, and instead you're going to go and look for walleye on that point or something. And so it allows you to do those new things and to explore like that. And I think, you know, like you're saying, people used to have to like sit around and wait for fish to come to them. And I think that you're right. This opens up kind of a new way of fishing for a lot of people. So that's pretty cool.
No, absolutely. And I always, you know, and it's like what you guys said earlier, you've just been using it for a short time. And I always tell customers when they say, oh, I'm buying my first setup, and I'm like, welcome to the coolest, most frustrating part about fishing, because now you can see them, they're there, and that they're coming up and looking at your bait, whether or not it's live bait or artificial or whatever. But the fact that they won't take it, like that is, there's so many times I want to pull my hair out because of it. But it also tells you a lot about the reaction of that fish. What did that fish not like? Did he just not like that lure or your cadence or anything like that? It tells a whole nother story for sure.
Well, and that's a really great point, especially right now. There's a lot of debates about like, will Wisconsin ban LiveScope and blah, blah, blah. And everybody has their thoughts and all of this. And I'm not here to judge any of those thoughts, right? But one of the things that you're talking about is it does not matter how many fish you can find. You can find every fish in the lake. But if they don't like your presentation, if they don't like your bait, if they don't like your jig cadence, there's so many other things that need to line up. I mean, ultimately, that is still fishing. So interesting point. Imagine if you put a minnow on there and they hated it.
Yeah.
So I just want to jump back quick here, just because I have this on the screen. So one thing I don't want to forget to mention is that I know there's going to be some people out there that are going to look at this picture and they're going to get nervous and they're going to be like, okay, this is an aluminum pole with a hole in it and you're running cords through, and is that going to like cut into those cords? And that was one thing that I mentioned to Emily when we were assembling ours, which I'm doing some post-production on kind of an install video. So we'll have that on our YouTube coming up here. But one thing I mentioned to Emily when we were doing that, you spent a lot of time making this hole like so smooth. Like there's no sharp edges on any of this pole at all, which was super nice that I didn't have to worry about the cable at all when we were like running it through. It was really nice.
Yep. And there may be, I mean, it's a production part. I mean, there may be a sharp burr every once in a while, but it's also the fact of those cables aren't getting pulled up and down that pole a lot.
Right.
So that's where you're going to get that cutting or that chafing, as it sits like that. It's really never going to happen. The guys that are always nervous about that, I always say something that works good is either black tape. If it makes you feel better, you can put a piece of black tape, but what works really good is like just rubber hose, like a piece of like rubber fuel line, cut 6 inches of it and slice it, and then just put it around the cord. If it makes you feel better, and obviously you guys know, fishing is a game of confidence. If you're confident in what you're doing, you're going to catch fish. Where if you've got a bad attitude and you're not confident in what you're doing, it's not going to happen. So
those are really great tips. You can tell that you're very like inventor minded or something, mechanical. But I'm just saying, like it like Josh was saying, it was smooth enough that like I did not need that. So like if you're preparing to buy this product and don't put that on your need list.
Okay, so I know that we're spending a lot of time on the LiveScope pole and stuff like that. But you have like shuttles for your LiveScope and other screens of graphs and stuff. You got mounts, you got super stable mounts for all of your boat graphs. You got all kinds of stuff on here. So you want to touch on a little bit, anything in particular?
The big thing is the LiveScope, the poles, like the small graph that you see there on the right. We sell a lot of those for guys that use our small ice shuttle, like on the side of their boat, so you can mount, we have a mounting plate that it's kind of a quick detach system that you can mount your small shuttle right to that and put it right on the gunnel of the boat. So now, if you're going to move to the front or the back, and we have a lot of customers that run a totally independent live system from the rest of their boat, because if they jump in their buddy's boat, or if they go jump on a pontoon or anything like that, and they've got a mount, like they can mount it to anything. So it's it's ease of use is what we try and target for sure.
Well, and this is going back to a little bit of what we were talking about earlier. This base right here, I'm assuming will fit on, like, if you have a rod holder and you want to swap out one of your rod holders for an electronics mount, you can do that. You just unscrew the big nut at the bottom, swap the mounts and tighten the nut back down. And you don't have to crank that nut down by any means. Like, you just get it tight and it's like solid.
Yep. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. It's the exact same base for all of our rod holders, our graph mounts, you know, everything that we make is based, that base starts with everything.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. I was kind of laughing the other day in the boat, and I think I was kind of giving Josh a hard time, but not on purpose. Because I was saying, in my opinion, spring is actually the worst season to get a LiveScope because at least when you're thinking panfish, they're all going super, super shallow, right? Yeah. And so when you're talking about LiveScope, anything like under 10 feet or so, you know, it isn't as great of reading or whatever, right? But when fish are that shallow, how much graph do you need, right? You're just casting at the bank. Mm-hmm. But why I bring this up is this is the perfect season to be setting these things up. So if you are new with a graph, if you have never used a LiveScope and you are looking at investing, if you are setting up any of these different platforms, the different mounting plates and whatever to get it on your boat, the nice thing is that as you are out fishing, or bring your kids, bring your friend, have them casting at the shores. And like you're saying, the boat is still going to catch fish. That's going to be awesome, right? But that allows you the time to explore those lakes, right? Get used to reading the water temperature, get used to all your different preset settings, get used to, I don't know, just all those different things so that as summer comes along, as fall comes along, and then you reset it up for winter, that'll be great, right? But I don't know. I guess I started the saying spring is the worst time to get it, but I was going to end by saying maybe spring is the best time to set up.
I would agree with that 100%. Like, it's all about learning your electronics, learning your settings. And, you know, I think back, you know, 25 years ago when I first started walleye fishing, when I first started, it was a panfish, it was crappie, it was bluegill. That's what my grandma took us to catch. I mean, that's what we caught, was crappie and bluegill. And 25 plus years ago, when I started walleye fishing, you know, we had a Fish Eagle 2 that all it had was a little fish icon, and it was terrible. Like, all we used was it for the depth. And now I look at what we spend on electronics and what our electronics will tell us if we're willing to learn it. Mm-hmm. That's the big part. And that's a huge part. And I don't even want to, I shouldn't even bring this up, but you brought up the fact of Wisconsin with the banning, talking about limiting live, and this is probably a rabbit hole you guys might not even want to go down, but the best analogy that I heard, and I'm gonna throw out props to him, was Tom Boley. Tom Boley made a comment that he felt the biggest change in fishing in the last 20 years was lake chip maps. Mm-hmm. You know, we went from having no idea what the bottom looked like to having a Lake Master chip that now you've got graduations in 1 foot in intervals that tells you everything about that. So again, we can pass on that. Everybody can have their own opinion. But yeah, I feel like there's way more things in the fishing industry that have impacted fishing greater than what we are seeing right now. Because like you said, Melissa, you still have to catch those fish. You know, you still have to catch them at the right time.
Well, and it's funny, you almost read my mind, because that's exactly what my brain went back to, is because you have to be open-minded about how you're fishing. You have to be open to learning. You have to and respond to what the fish are wanting. And so if you're out there and you have your confidence bait on the end of that line, and that's great, you know, cool. But if that's not what the fish want, it does not matter how much confidence you have in it. And so you almost have to have the confidence to be flexible enough to do that. Because like you're saying, if that's live bait, you're a live bait person, cool. But if that's not what the fish want, you know, and they want a bright hot pink plastic or something crazy, you know, I mean, to make that change, though, that could be a big step for some people.
Oh, for sure. And looking back, I mean, 6 years ago, we used to pull bottom bouncers primarily. I mean, that's what we did. And with spinner blades, well, then we noticed that the spinner blade bite kind of started going away, and we started changing a lot of other things. And it's not that the fish don't like spinners, it's just wrong time of year, wrong color, wrong speed. But now with live, like, you can figure that out. Like, you can see what those fish are doing and change it up so that you can figure it out easier. It's a huge tool. I'm not saying that it's not going to impact the fishing industry, but it's you being open-minded enough to learn what the fish are telling you. They're telling you everything. It's just you need to figure it out.
Well, and what we've been saying since, the whole controversy over here in Wisconsin has popped up is that in our opinion, technology has always driven regulation.
Yep.
So, you brought up your Eagle 2 that you had, even further back, you're looking at stuff like the flashers, like Vaxlar, and that stuff was like way back in the late 50s, early 60s, and then it's sat there forever.
Yep.
Until somebody from saltwater figured out that freshwater fishermen will spend the money on sonar. And so then they introduced us to that with stuff like the Eagle 2 and various other brands, and then it came up, and then we got down imaging, and then we got side imaging, and now we have live imaging, and all that. If you look, we've progressively got more stringent on our take and our slots.
Yep.
And that's to protect the resource. And I think that more sportsmen have become okay with that.
Yep.
If they enjoy the sport of it, and I think the respect is starting to get there a little bit more, being able to realize, like, you get to a point where you're like, man, these things, we need to protect them because we know so much about them now. And the more somebody knows about a particular topic, the more they're going to care about it. And I think that's why, like you said, it will change how fishing is done. But I also think the regulations and the rules and protections will follow and equalize it out.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I think of a person that it'd be awesome to have a conversation with and get his opinion would be a guy like Al Linder.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, somebody that everybody's known since, you kind of feel like he's been around longer than God in the fishing industry. But, and he'd probably get a chuckle out of that. But I mean, even him, like the first time that I ever saw him on TV, like a PBS TV show of him having a fish finder and me growing up fishing farm ponds and little lakes, like it blew my mind of what it was, how he could see the fish. And now you look back and it's like, you really didn't see anything, they were such bad units and compared to what we have now. So, but yeah, it goes back to if they want to take it away, but like you said, the slots, the respect that the sportsmen have, like, we keep very few fish every year, and I love eating fish, but it's one of those that it's all about having that resource there for many years to come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, with Al and some of that old technology, and not just Al, you have Babe Winkleman, you have all the big bass names. Those guys were so good with their electronics because they were already stellar fishermen, right? They knew how to read lakes. They patterned out their fish. A lot of them just memorized bodies of water just by feel, just by hours in the boat. And I think no amount of electronics is going to give you can be 80% of the fishermen that those guys are, but you'll never reach their level without keeping those skills honed up.
Right.
And so you go out there, you buy a LiveScope, or you buy even side imaging or down imaging, and you think that that's going to get you more fish. You might actually be putting yourself at a detriment because you're not keeping up with some of those other tactile, stuff that you have to be out there doing skills.
Yes.
And just relying on your electronics. It goes hand in hand. So, yeah.
Oh, for sure. Well, it's no different than you guys, out on the hunt for your salamanders. I mean, there's areas where you guys have found them in the past that that it's a good area. It's no different than fishing. It's knowing that, where you guys were at in the woods, that like the back of your hand, where, those guys learned the lakes like the back of their hand. They knew that there was rock piles 30 feet down because maybe the lake was low at one time and they found it, or just over the years they figured it out. That's still part of the game. If like you said, if you're going to go out and buy a LiveScope and expect to walk in and win a tournament on NWT or any of the state or local tournaments, you're sorely wrong. Like it'll cause you more frustration and more heartache. Sometimes but it's learning the electronics, going back to that. Absolutely. So
I'm still laughing back at you saying that we know our land like the back of our. I literally almost turned the wrong direction. I would not have made it back for this podcast if it was not for Josh.
That's okay. It's just your sense of direction. You have no compass. That's okay.
Not
all of us have compasses.
There is a little thing called GPS on your phone. I'm not sure if you've caught up with technology yet, that you can find your way back home.
One time
that moment when you're so sure, oh, it's this way. Of course, I don't have to look. And he was like, no. And oh no.
one day I'm just waiting for a call from my neighbors going, hey, did you lose something? They'll find Emily back in the woods somewhere going, where's my house?
Yeah. I actually had that feeling once elk hunting probably 5 or 6 years ago, where we had chased some elk or followed some elk for probably 3 or 4 miles. And we were so far away from the truck that I was just like, well, this is going to be a long walk out in the dark. And after walking about 5.5 miles back, we realized that my phone or my compass, I had put true north instead of like the direction we were heading. And it was to the point that I was just like, I think we should just hunker under this tree and we're going to sleep here tonight. if like we were so far off, it took us almost 2 hours to get back to the truck. And yeah, needless to say, the guy that I was hunting with, that was the last time that I ran the GPS. So, but yes, that is easy to do. You can get mixed around pretty easy. So
that's why all the lakes that we fish are less than 80 acres.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Well, I have to ask, actually, while we're talking about fishing, have you been out fishing recently? Sorry to put you on the spot. I said I wouldn't do that.
I haven't been on the boat with a fishing rod, but I did help with the Montana walleye spawn to be able to collect some eggs. We were talking about that a little bit earlier. So technically I did catch some fish. They were in a giant trap, but it was all legal. I was with a fish biologist. I don't want somebody to call me in or anything. So. But no, I've not been on the boat fishing yet.
But that actually is pretty interesting, because you were just telling us before the show, that's just a volunteer opportunity that basically anybody has in any state, and you just have to sign up for it.
Yep. And it depends on the state. There's a lot of states that don't do it, or they don't take the volunteers. Montana is happy to have the volunteers. They take a limited crew every day. It's not like they take 100 people. I think there was maybe 7 of us or 8 of us total. But yeah, I mean, and any type of fisherman, from, a trout fisherman to salmon to walleye to panfish, like if you have the opportunity to go see it, like it is way more in depth. And the cool part is talking with the biologist, like what I learned on Sunday about fish habitat and where they were setting their traps and stuff like that. There was so much of it that a little light bulb would go off, and I'm like, holy cow, like there's so much that it was almost overload. On the way home from the lake, I sat there and I'm like, man, I wish I could have spent 2 more days with them, because all they did they answered one question, but they created 4 more. So it was a really cool opportunity.
But what an awesome way to be able to, get together with a group of people and talk fish. Because it's not fishing, but those habits, the tendencies, the habitat of the fish, all super interesting stuff. And so even if you can't fish in that moment, you're going to be able to take those different things and apply them to when you are fishing, or maybe your favorite body of water, or whatever that is. So that is super cool.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, for sure.
Awesome. And I never thought I could sign up for something like that. So I guess I'm going to have to look for that in Wisconsin. So kind of neat. As far as TKI, I think Josh was able to put the website in the comments. It doesn't look clickable. Maybe it is. So if not, just copy it into your browser and you'll get there, or otherwise Google search it, I imagine. So that's going to be awesome. But no matter what season is, you have something for each of them. So that's going to be great.
Yep, for sure.
Cool. And Josh, can you remind us what that website is?
Yeah, it's TKICNC.com.
Perfect. And Tom, if people are looking to follow you on your adventures and all of that, do you have social media or a way that they can follow you?
Yep, we have our Facebook and Instagram, TKI CNC. It's not TKICNC.com, it's just TKI CNC. But yeah, we're always trying to post, stuff that we're working on, or new products, or, some of it we can share, some of it we can't. But it's always having a product ready to go when it goes on the website, instead of saying you're going to have it and then 3 months later it's finally available. So, but yeah, just TKI CNC. We're on Facebook, Instagram. We're always posting some stories and stuff like that of cool little projects. We try and keep it funny. Sometimes I feel like the personality or the personability part side of it, we're just, I don't know. My wife says that I've got a screwed up sense of humor. So we try and keep it fun. We're by no means a corporate company. We are a family owned business that likes to have fun. So
that is so cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that we're going to have you back on again at some point. We haven't talked about that yet, but I just know you have so many cool things to come that we are going to want to talk to you again. So that's going to be great. And otherwise, we're definitely going to follow along online and see all the different stuff that you have coming and going on and all of that. And thank you so much for being here tonight to talk about all this with us.
You bet. It was great to be here. And yeah, I look forward to following you guys as well. I've been following you for a while now, and it kind of takes me back to my roots a little bit.
Well, and then in that case, we're looking forward to getting you in the boat.
Well, you've always got an open invite with me. So
perfect. Same here.
Thank you.
And to the people at home that maybe can't get into the boat with us, that's why we do this podcast every week. And thanks so much for joining us this week. And if you're still looking to talk fishing, then we'll be here next Thursday as well. And looking forward to seeing you on that next week's edition of The Night Bite.
Night, everybody.